I work the night shift at a retirement home. The same resident dies every night and comes back to life in the morning. Working the night shift at Sunset Manor was supposed to be easy money. Watch some old folks sleep, check vitals every few hours, make sure nobody wanders off. What they didn't tell me during orientation was that Mrs. Rivera in room 237 dies every single night at exactly 11:47 p.m. The first time it happened, I thought it was a medical emergency. Her heart monitor went flatline. No pulse, pupils dilated, completely dead. I called the nurses, started CPR, the whole routine. But when the day shift arrived at 7 a.m., there was Mrs. Rivera sitting up in bed asking for her morning pills like nothing happened. She had a good night, Nurse Bradley told me when I tried to explain. Slept right through. I showed him the incident report I'd written, but he just smiled and said sometimes the equipment malfunctioned. He threw my report in the trash. The second night, same thing. 11:47 p.m., Mrs. Rivera flatlined. This time I didn't call anyone. I just sat there and watched her body for 8 hours. Stone cold, no breathing, no heartbeat. At 6:30 a.m., she suddenly gasped and her eyes snapped open. When I asked if she remembered anything, she looked confused and said she'd been dreaming about her garden. By the third night, I realized this wasn't normal. I started documenting everything. Taking photos of the heart monitor, recording videos of her lifeless body, timing how long she stayed dead, always the same. Death at 11:47 p.m., resurrection around 6:30 a.m. But when I showed the evidence to my supervisor, Janet, she said the files were corrupted, and I needed to stop making up stories about the residents. That's when I noticed the other residents were getting worse. Mr. Torres, who was fairly healthy when I started, began looking pale and weak. Mrs. Walsh stopped eating and started sleeping 20 hours a day. Even the younger residents in their 70s were declining rapidly, like something was draining the life out of them. I decided to explore the building during my downtime. Sunset Manor was built in 1987 on the site of an old cemetery, according to the historical records I found in the office. But what caught my attention were the building blueprints showing a network of tubes and pipes running through the walls, far more complex than what you'd need for oxygen or heating. Following the blueprints, I found access panels hidden behind fake electrical boxes. Inside the walls was a system of clear plastic tubing filled with a red liquid that pulsed like blood. The tubes ran from every room to a central hub in the basement. I followed them down and found a machine that looked like a massive dialysis system, pumping and filtering whatever was flowing through those tubes. The main feed line went directly to room 237. Mrs. Rivera wasn't just dying and coming back, she was feeding off the other resident. The facility was using her as some kind of life force battery, keeping the most profitable long-term care patients alive by slowly draining the others. I confronted Janet the next morning with photos of the machine. She didn't deny it. Mrs. Rivera was our first trial, she explained calmly. Terminal cancer. Family couldn't afford treatment. We offered them an alternative. She agreed to the procedure in exchange for keeping her alive and covering her grandson's college tuition. What procedure? I demanded. Janet pulled out a thick medical file. The real Mrs. Rivera had died 3 years ago. What I'd been watching was something else. A hybrid created by combining her body with tissue from the cemetery soil beneath the building. The thing in room 237 needed to die and regenerate every night to process the life energy it was stealing from other residents. 12 other residents are part of the program now, Janet continued. They volunteered when their families couldn't afford long-term care. We keep them alive indefinitely, and they help us extend the lives of our premium patients. It's a win-win. I quit that night, but I couldn't stop thinking about what I'd seen. 2 weeks later, I drove back to check on the residents I'd grown attached to. Mr. Torres was in a wheelchair now, barely conscious. Mrs. Walsh had been moved to hospice care. The younger residents looked like they'd aged decades, but Mrs. Rivera looked exactly the same. When I asked Janet how many residents were really part of the program, she smiled and said, "Why do you think we needed a night shift worker who wouldn't ask too many questions? Room 237 isn't the only one with special requirement." That night, I realized I'd been documenting the wrong room. I checked the other residents' files and found the truth. Every single resident at Sunset Manor was part of the program. Some were the feeders, dying and regenerating nightly. Others were the fed, kept alive by stolen life force. And a few, like Mrs. Rivera, were the processors, converting death energy into life energy. I was the only living person in the entire building. Even Janet and the other staff members had died years ago and were being sustained by the system. I'd been taking orders from corpses, caring for corpses, documenting a facility full of the dead. As I ran from my car, I heard Mrs. Rivera calling from her window, "Same time tomorrow, sweetie. Don't forget to check my vitals at 11:47.